If anything is certain in this world, is that grass is green, the sky is blue, and Norwich City have been the proverbial yo-yo club of English football. Or at least they were. Time has passed, and it almost feels like a lifetime since Norwich were either going up or going down. The truth is, the recent news around the club suggests it may still get worse before it gets better. With Liam Manning being given his P45, Norwich achieved a whopping grand total of 1 point from their recent 6 games. But like so many football clubs in the past, there is always a beginning to why a club isn't performing well, let alone not picking up enough points. So with that out of the way, let's explore why Norwich are not only not pushing for the playoffs, which is what I kind of predicted at the beginning of the season, but also sitting rather comfortably in the relegation zone at this point in writing. Number 1, the core problem. Under former manager Daniel Farke, Norwich City was built on high energy pressing, quick ball circulation, technically tidy midfield play. Not only was it exciting for me to watch, but Norwich were also winning, which is still very important in today's game. Honestly, no more of that modernising manager hoo-ha. During this time, Grant Hanley was the defensive leader in a well-drilled unit. His partner, Ben Gibson, being an incredibly reliable championship centre-back, Kenny McLean being a useful rotation centre-mid, and Onel Hernandez and Adam Eder both being squad contributors. It was a time when the players at Farke's disposal were playing arguably at their career best, which did show considering they were promoted to the Premier League in 2021. Less said about their season in the top flight, the better. Norwich kept many core players beyond their peak, and it shows today that these players have either digressed joining other clubs or are still on Norwich's books. Grant Hanley is injury prone and has more stability than a shopping trolley with a wonky wheel. Ben Gibson struggles defending high spaces and in one-on-one situations, which is like being a lifeguard who isn't great with water. Kenny McLean is placed in different roles nearly every week, which shows no direction and stability. Also, Onel Hernandez and Adam Eder, both who have moved away from Norwich not too long ago, never really developed into first-team assets. Honestly, Norwich don't seem to have declined because they lack talent, but actually declined because their squad stopped making sense as a unit. As the league got quicker, fitter and more tactically fluid, Norwich became slower, less cohesive and increasingly easy to play against. And in a competitive league like the Championship, that only spells trouble. Number 2, the strategic void. Already touching on Daniel Farke, there was another mastermind at hand which helped in Norwich's rise to the Premier League not long ago. Former sporting director Stuart Webber may have been integral to Norwich's promotion to the Premier League, but that isn't to say that he's the most likeable there. Under his tenure, the manager, recruitment, playing style and squad development all aligned. Webber and Farke worked hand in hand to make Norwich a success, rather than living up to their yo-yo status. However, as they returned to the Championship a year after being in the Premier League, the squad needed a refresh and investment was needed. Both things which did not happen. Additionally, as the saying goes, some things are better left unsaid, which is what someone should have said to Webber as he conducted interviews, talking about how he didn't listen to fans or care about outside criticism. That always goes down well. To put it into context, after Webber left in 2022, the overall football identity of Norwich became vague and inconsistent. However, Webber's tenure as sporting director was symbolised as frustrating, as while Norwich was struggling to stamp down on consistency in the Championship, he would be participating in endurance challenges in Guatemala and climbing Kilimanjaro, which is kind of like as Prime Minister deciding to go backpacking during a cost of living crisis. Technically allowed, but timing is absolutely insane. Number 3, project versus pressure. When I made my predictions on the Championship season, without a care in the world that I'll get none right, I predicted Norwich would finish 6th. At the time, I felt Norwich had a manager on their hands who knew how to get the best out of his players and push them to some form of positive trajectory. However, to my detriment that this prediction is forever on the internet, Manning has now been sacked with Norwich sitting second bottom in the Championship. As if the only positive of this is being one place above the team with a minus points tally will make the flowers bloom. Manning's philosophy mainly consists of high-tempo attacking football, which seems to be more and more evident these days that kind of philosophy takes time to instill in any team. Norwich seems to be a side who clearly expects immediate results in the Championship, and who could blame them? They do have some history in the top level of English football. However, to instill a philosophy like this in a team who has old or mismatched players and defensive fragilities, it was all in hindsight going to go one way. Watching Football League highlights, you can really see how the other teams in the Championship took advantage of the mistakes Norwich players continue to commit each week. It's clear to a person watching the TV backwards that Norwich just couldn't do the simple things well. This mismatch between long-term project and short-term necessity created pressure that Manning never really had the chance to relieve. That being said, with this in mind, it doesn't seem the sacking of Manning would really fix anything outright. If Norwich had hired a young coach experienced in promoting teams with a dynamic front line and a pressing style, they could have hit the ground running. Instead, the mismatch between expectation and squad construction meant the potential went untapped. And number 4, confidence completely fell off. Confidence maketh the man, as well as a dog wearing sunglasses at a wedding. If the dog was Norwich and the wedding was the Championship, then Norwich spent most of the reception bumping into the buffet table and knocking over the drinks. In my humble opinion, and do correct me if I'm wrong on this, or even impersonating Captain Obvious, but confidence is the biggest issue with Norwich right now. You can see it in the body language. When Norwich concede first, they look finished before half-time. Better yet, even when Norwich score first, if the opposition scores in the same game, their heads dip down like they've just had a 5-0 spanking handed to them. That's not tactics, that's mentality. If I had not already made it clear, I am somewhat a fan of Liam Manning. You do not go from managing a team in the playoffs to forgetting how to manage another. The following things are what I have noticed whenever I watch Norwich on the telly. Sure, it would be more beneficial to observe firsthand, but the highlights seem to still convey enough to know something is wrong. Some of the players evidently started second-guessing their decisions. Hesitation is deadly, and Norwich suffered as small errors snowballed into conceding goals. There isn't a lot of passages of play that shows Norwich dictating play. Instead of creating overloads and taking the game to opponents like under Farker, they allowed the opposition to control the ball, a clear sign of collective self-doubt. Additionally, with visible body language and the spillover effect from star players, the lack of confidence which has infected the squad has manifested into repeated losses. Every second guess or thought would just give the opposition more reason to exploit every inch of the pitch. This video doesn't come from a place of shaming Norwich City or its fans. If anyone truly understands the club's issues, it's the loyal supporters who dedicate a portion of their Saturday to watch the team they love. Norwich is a fantastic club, and I'm proud to say I've had the chance to visit, which is why I wanted to make this video. These 4 examples that I have given as to why Norwich are performing as they are, from squad issues to football leadership, patience to confidence, are examples that I have noticed since the start of the season. And regrettably, after making my predictions video, but it's more abstract than just 4 reasons. With Hanley and Gibson gone, the team relies on both younger and less experienced centre-backs, which has exposed gaps and poor communication at the back, and players who look to have lost their feet. New recruits are still adapting, and the blend of youth and experience hasn't yet gelled, contributing to inconsistency and poor results. Even more so, though he did not threaten as much in the second half of last season, Borja Sainz's departure really does show how Norwich are missing his attacking output, even with Josh Sargent leading the line. In conclusion, Norwich haven't just struggled tactically. Selling important players removed the gel that held the squad together. Forcing new players and the manager to rebuild cohesion under pressure, a process made all the more urgent because just 3 years ago, the club was relegated from the Premier League, proving how quickly stability can unravel at Carrow Road. So how do you guys feel about the recent sacking of Liam Manning? Will Norwich be one of the 3 teams relegated from the Championship? Be sure to comment what you think has been Norwich's biggest weakness. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I will see you soon.